Joining us right now to talk about a part of that debate, GOP political strategist, co-founder, mustreadtexas.com, Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Chad. Good morning. Doing great. How about you?
Doing fantastic. You were actually at the debate, correct?
I was.
How did it go? Sitting there in the auditorium and watching these folks going after each other. How did that play inside the room, and what did you take away from it being inside the room?
Yeah, I mean, look, that was a crazy debate. I mean, the back and forth, the attacks, the crowd was very engaged, and honestly, I thought was engaged too much. They were too loud, clapping and booing. I'm at the point now where I think maybe just doing it in a static TV studio may be better for the audience. But yeah, I mean, it was intense. Trump, had a couple comments that were not well received at all, calling George W. Bush a liar as it relates to Iraq and bringing up 9/11 in a really negative way that blamed Bush. And he also, again, attacked the audience, which never makes much strategic sense. So it was pretty borderline out of control, and I think it probably didn't do a lot of good for the Republican Party. That said, there were some good exchanges. Cruz, I thought, was really good on the Supreme Court, and honestly raised a lot of questions about Trump as it relates to some of his past liberal positions. Rubio was able to really put away the robot narrative from the last debate. He did very, very well. He was very strong all the way through, and Jeb Bush was the best he's ever been, and I actually think he was probably the best of anyone. Really got in Trump's face and in his head during that debate, so much so that Trump refused to shake his hand afterwards. So I thought it was a consequential debate. I think it's going to give Rubio and Cruz momentum. I think it's going to hurt Trump in South Carolina. The question is, can Cruz catch Trump, number one? And number two, is there a sort of a significant lead between Rubio and Bush for one or the other, so much so that it forces the other candidate to get out before the SEC primary on March 1st?
I just look at this, and immediately after the debate, and during the debate, social media was blowing up about Donald Trump, and there were people saying it's over. This is what's going to cause Donald Trump's downfall. The George W. Bush comments, him defending Planned Parenthood. There were some other moments in there as well. And as someone, and you and I have talked about this so many times, what is going to cause Trump's downfall? Do his supporters care that he's not a conservative? Do you think his supporters will care about the Planned Parenthood and the Bush comments?
Yeah, look, I think generally speaking, he has a very loyal base of core support. What percentage that is among Republican primary voters is a little hard to say. I mean, he generally appears to be in the sort of 25 to 35% range. What matters is voters that are making up their mind at the end, and voters that are persuadable. And so if you watch that debate and you're a big Trump fan, there's a good chance in South Carolina, given as pro-military and pro-veteran as that state is, that Trump's comments about lying, Bush lying and 9/11 did not play well. George W. Bush has an 84% approval rating in South Carolina. It's one of his strongest states. It's part of the reason why Jeb has him on the campaign trail today, just outside of Charleston for an event. George W. Bush hasn't done a political event since he left the White House in 2009. He doesn't do that. He's really stayed away from politics. So they're bringing him out, obviously, because they think George W. can validate Jeb as a credible commander-in-chief, and obviously that's something that only a president can do at that level. But obviously the intrigue is increased given the comments Trump made over the weekend. And so there is this question of, is Trump, unhinged? Is he uncontrolled? Or was he trying to sort of overshadow and color this event that George W. is going to do? Now the focus is to some extent going to be on Iraq, and certainly Jeb and George W. are going to get asked about that at the event or after the event. So I think he went a step further at that debate, Chad, than he has in the past. It's one thing if he attacks someone or uses an insult or says something that's kind of silly. This, to me, veered into conspiracy theory land. I mean, the comments he was making were no different than something Michael Moore would say, or Noam Chomsky, or any number of far left, uber liberals. And so I just think attacking the Bushes in South Carolina is not a smart strategic play, and I think it will hurt Trump. The question is, does it hurt him enough to make it a competitive race in South Carolina? I think ultimately the result in South Carolina is going to be fairly close. I still would bet Trump is likely to win because I just think there's too many non-Trump candidates competing for the non-Trump vote.
Yeah. I think we've got to. We somehow these candidates have got to drop out and maybe narrow it to a 3-person race with Trump, Rubio, and Cruz going after each other, and then I think at that point, hopefully, we could see maybe some different results out there because I still believe we can get a good conservative candidate out of this race and out of this election. Yeah, I think the potential is still there, but you're right. It's very hard to consolidate the non-Trump vote with 6 candidates in the race. And, of course, we still have 6 candidates. Carson's still in. Kasich, obviously. Kasich's in Michigan today, making his 9th trip to that state. They vote on March 8th. He thinks that's the next state he can win, or the next large state that he can win. So I don't think that the field is going to narrow. The question is, does Jeb or Rubio perform poorly enough in South Carolina that it forces them to get out, and that then a lot of that vote goes to the other one? That may give Jeb or Rubio a chance to win a few states on March 1st or perform well enough to pull some delegates and then win Florida on March 15th. And now that would be significant. But if I'm Jeb or I'm Rubio, look, they both think they're going to win Florida. They both think that they're the best non-Trump candidate. They both want to go forward. So I don't know. We had Iowa and New Hampshire that was a forcing mechanism for the other 11 candidates that dropped out. I don't know that there's an obvious forcing mechanism going forward. I think Carson may drop after South Carolina because he's basically out of money and he's gotten rid of about 50 staffers. But outside of Carson, I'm not sure anybody else is going to get out. And that all that does is help Trump. Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Matt, let me ask you about an exchange that happened between Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. And this has been a debate point that Cruz has brought up a few times, that Marco Rubio on Univision said something in Spanish that was different than what he would say in English about ending President Obama's executive orders on amnesty. The Rubio camp, and I've seen it from others out there who have translated it, say, no, that's not what Rubio said. Then Rubio fired back that Ted Cruz doesn't know enough Spanish to know what he was talking about. What was your whole view on that, and who's right in that argument?
Yeah, so the exact language here is what matters. Cruz never said that Rubio supports DACA or would keep it forever or whatever. All he pointed to is when Rubio was on Univision on an interview in Spanish, he said he would not immediately rescind it, period. That's what the translation is. I've seen the translation done by a news organization, not by someone who's an interested party. So that is what he said. And, I don't know if Rubio thought he'd get away with it, speaking Spanish to a Spanish audience. Obviously, you do have people who have been impacted by DACA, where if you rescinded the order immediately, it would impact them immediately. And so I think what Rubio is saying is we have to have a process, and might take some time. Now, I don't think he believes DACA should stay in place forever. I don't believe that.
Right.
But he did say on Univision he wouldn't rescind it immediately. Cruz has said he would. If you note, in that debate exchange, Rubio did not answer the specific charge. He just said Cruz lies, and he said he didn't know what he was talking about because he doesn't speak Spanish. Of course, Cruz responded in Spanish, and I think he said something along the lines of, we can speak Spanish now if you like. Now, that was a little hard to hear because the crowd was cheering so loud and yelling so loud. So we'll see where this goes from here. Cruz has obviously gone after Rubio on a number of issues. He said he didn't fully support defunding Planned Parenthood because he was unwilling to support that effort when Cruz was fighting that battle 6 or 9 months ago. He's raised questions about his views on gay marriage. I think Rubio has said that the Supreme Court ruling on gay marriage is settled law. That's obviously not something Cruz believes. He believes we have to overturn it, either with legislation or with another Supreme Court case. So this battle goes forward. Rubio is just saying, well, Cruz is a liar, and Trump is saying Cruz is a liar. But Rubio is not really answering the substance of the issue.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Matt, before we let you go, the death of Justice Scalia has really brought up the issue, obviously, of Supreme Court nominees and the presidential election, more so than it has in the past presidential elections. Do you think that the death of Scalia changes the direction of this nomination for the Republicans and maybe the entire presidential race?
I think it does, because I think as you said, it makes the Supreme Court issue a top 3 issue, and it wasn't a top 3 issue. It wasn't tangible to most people. Most people don't really follow the Supreme Court. They don't understand the balance. We have a very tenuous 5-4 conservative balance, but it swings because Anthony Kennedy goes back in both directions. He went to the left on gay marriage. He went to the right on Hobby Lobby and religious liberty. He swings back and forth. And that's obviously the best reason for not moving forward with a Supreme Court nominee in a presidential election year, is that if you let voters choose and you let voters weigh in, they're going to weigh in on the balance of the Supreme Court, and there's going to be validation and justification for that new nominee. So, yeah, I think this is a big issue. I think it helps Cruz. Look, this is someone who clerked for the Supreme Court Chief Justice William Rehnquist, who's argued in front of the Supreme Court 9 times, who has a ton of expertise in this area. I think Jeb Bush obviously has appointed judges, so it could be a strength for him if he's able to talk about that, and he has a good record in that regard. I'm not sure where it leaves Rubio. To some extent, he's kind of in an echo position, sort of echoing almost what Cruz is saying. Cruz has said he's going to filibuster anyone Obama nominates. So we'll see where it goes from here. I think it gives Cruz a chance to really go after Trump for his past liberal positions in a way that's going to matter more than it has in the past. I think this is going to be a big issue in the general election. You've already heard Cruz talk about Hillary appointing justices and the real risk that poses. And so I think this is a chance for Cruz to go on offense, not just in the primary, but also in the general election. And that's an issue where he can use it to his advantage.
Matt Mackowiak, tell folks what they can find on mustreadtexas.com this week.
Yeah, obviously following a lot of the news about Cruz in the presidential race. We also have a number of editorials that have been posted related to contested primaries in some of these congressional races from newspapers around the state. You can find all the news, all the opinion, all the blog items from around Texas at mustreadtexas.com.
All right, and as always, follow Matt on Twitter at Matt Mackowiak. Matt, thank you very much.
Thanks, Chad. Have a great week.
You too. That's Matt Mackowiak.